Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages. My name is Peter Strappen, the co-host of Seattle Boat Show Live, and that's my other co-host there. It's a full plate tonight. Hi, Mark Wenzel. Hi, Landons.
Hi, Peter.
What a beautiful day out there. I just walked around Gasworks Park, and I think this might be the prettiest day of the entire year thus far. It really kind of lightens my step, and there's a packed parking lot. We got the clocks changing, good stuff happening all around. St. Patty's Day up around the corner. So
yeah, and we're supposedly we might hit 60 degrees on Saturday. So a good day to get out on the boat.
Yeah, Mark can put on your Bermuda shorts.
Well, I don't know about if I'd go that far, but it is time to do the sea trials on your boat. And Leonard, Lorena, and I separately, we're getting our boats ready. We are going to Alaska. We're not saying when or how yet, but because we don't want anybody joining us yet. Although there are some people that will be joining me on the Waggoner flotilla to Alaska. And so we're pretty excited. We're going to do some boating. The border is still not open. I just want to clarify that. But we're going to go through on a transit quick short trip through BC, and we hope they'll let us in.
Have you done any sort of calling ahead or anything like that, Mark, or are we a little too early right now?
I'm watching every day what's coming out of BC, and I'm talking to some of the professional captains that are delivering boats back and forth across the border. And but we have no word that there's going to be any official opening. We've been watching how Canada's been, they've approved more of the vaccines, but things seem to be slower with vaccinations in Canada right now. And so we're watching that pretty carefully. And but the numbers in the US are really looking good. The vaccinations are happening. The Landons have had theirs. I've had mine. And it feels pretty good once you have it, that hopefully we're out of the danger zone. Still wearing a mask though.
I mean, it feels pretty good. Well, some of us, I had a slight reaction to the Moderna, but
some people are afraid of needles.
Yeah, so but other than that, there was no real side effects. It was very easy. As a matter of fact, I was at the shot. I looked away, and then I said, "Well, are you going to do that?" And she said, "It's done."
Ah,
That's the best kind.
Exactly.
So Leonard, you helped our boating economy this week, I understand. So did the truck arrive with 12 batteries?
Well, I'm halfway there. So one of the orders arrived with 6 of the batteries. So one of the big projects we have going is to replace the lead acid batteries that we have in our house bank, and had 12 of the GC2, the golf cart batteries in there, the lead acid. So we're going to upgrade a little bit to the AGM batteries. We're not quite up to the lithium. I'm not quite I'm ready to brave the lithium batteries yet. So we're doing that. Batteries are here. And the other project that was done is the heat exchanger. Actually, I was going to share a screen if we wanted to go into that.
Yeah. Sure.
So I was going to share a screen here because we did finish this one, and we did I'm going to put this up slideshow. So wow. This was, the heat exchanger that we did, and then finally got it installed in the John Deere, and then I needed to put 5 gallons of coolant in. And so I had to figure out how I was going to get that in with virtually no headroom. Right there, you can see up here, there's about 2 or 3 inches of headroom in there. And so that's when I happened to go down to the Napa store and find this nice little thing here, a little pump, a couple of D-size flashlight batteries in the top of this thing, a little switch on the top. It's wonderful. Fits right down to into the jug. Does a beautiful job with that. $25 for that at Napa. Amazon has it for a little bit less than that, but they have a couple of options with that. So that was our fun project. Got all of that done, and no leaks, no drips, no errors. Everything seems to run at this point on the engines, on the John Deere engines.
So Margaret Palmer, who normally crews with me and will be crewing with me up to Alaska. She's really strict on the rules. She wants to make sure that we have a good shakedown. So I'm scheduling a shakedown. Going to do an overnight so that I can use everything on the boat, my anchoring system and the galley, the sanitation system. Everything will be used to make sure everything's operating. Are you planning on doing the same?
Yeah, we are. We're not just one, but we've got several trips planned. And actually, we were just inviting some family members to come and join us. But exactly that. We want to run everything. And one of these shakedown trips that we did at the beginning of the year happened to be right up to Cypress Island. And just to illustrate the kind of strange things that you find, we put the dinghy down, and we were in a dinghy into shore from Cypress Island, and started to motor away. We had to turn the steering wheel, and the steering wheel wouldn't turn. The mechanism that moves the outboard motor had rusted up over the winter season, and it couldn't turn the outboard at all. So it's kind of one of these things where you discover things by exercising everything on the boat, absolutely everything.
So you're missing part of the story. You couldn't steer the boat. You're tooling along.
Tooling in a circle.
Oh, okay.
A giant circle.
All right.
So yeah, it was kill the motor and get the oars out is how it ended up until we got that repaired. But you're right.
Good example. I mean, that's why we say exercise everything on the boat. You never know, and that's why I always make sure to test my sanitation system. My backup is a bucket, and nobody wants to use that.
Right.
Peter.
Yeah, I want to give a little housekeeping here. I just want to remind folks at home that we are recording these sessions, so you can visit them. You can go to openforboating.com. We post the previous sessions all there. They've been a lot of fun to watch through the year. Hard to believe we're approaching a year here, Mark.
We're coming up on a year. It's amazing.
Happy 1 year anniversary of COVID being a pandemic. And then also I wanted to include people to use the chat. So if you have questions for us, throw it into the chat and we'll be able to field those. And then, Mark, you suggested that we're looking for upcoming speakers. So if people have ideas for topics, speakers, dignitaries, more the merrier. You can put that in the chat, or you can email me and I'll put my email in the chat, peter@nmta.net. And as we look at our programming, I don't think we're going anywhere, Mark. I think, and Landon's, I think we're here for as long as you all at home will have us. We've got a big crowd tonight, and really looking forward to the show.
Yes. Yeah. And Peter, while you're on, what's going on in Olympia?
Yeah, it was a big date for me today. We had our skippering bill that has out-of-state charters that passed the House 97-0, and now we are in the Senate. So you've got to pass both House and the Senate with identical language. So now we'll start the Senate process very soon. Actually, come Monday of next week, I'll be testifying in the Senate Transportation Committee. So that's exciting. And then been a lot of time on Zoom. I met with National Marine Fisheries Service today to talk about marina permitting. They have developed new guidance in March of 2018, so 3 years ago, which put a halt to any sort of marina improvements that go on in Puget Sound. So that has really devastated a lot of marina operations, and operators are trying to do right for the environment. So trying to, push that boulder up the hill there, Mark. And I think we had a good conversation today, and I remain optimistic that we can get to the right spot. And then also I met with WSDOT, Washington State Department of Transportation. The Mount Lake Bridge needs some repairs. So they put out something in the local notice to mariners about comments, and the Coast Guard received 0. So the Coast Guard reached out to me and Arbaugh, and we said, timeout, yes, actually we do care. So WSDOT and a group of about 20 Arbaugh members and MTA members met earlier today to to understand that they're going to actually be able to open one leaf on the bridge, which will be, it sounds like a good situation there. So, and then also met with Department of Ecology and talked about the boatyard permit, which I mentioned last week, and that has to do with any those boatyards that work on your boats. They get a really tough, nation's toughest boatyard permit where they study and look at copper. And that one in the draft looks like it will be moving from 147 down to 15 parts per billion. That's with a B. So 15 parts per billion in the new draft permit. So you can imagine my little bit of hair standing up there when it comes to that's damn near impossible to meet, if it is impossible at all. So George and I met with them trying to make the case that that's crazy talk, and we shall see what that looks like. But that boatyard permit's out for public comment, and I can put some of those links in the chat, and we'll be weighing in officially between now and when the comment period ends on April 15th. So that's a brief rundown, Mark.
I have just one small housekeeping announcement, and that's for those of you who were part of Seattle Boat Show Connect at the Admiral level. Your Waggoner guides are packed up. They're ready to go. They just had a little bit of a delay, and they'll be some of them shipped this week. Those of you from Canada that shipped 2 or 3 weeks ago from our Canadian office, and the rest will be going out over the next couple of days. So if you haven't gotten it, hang in there. We're going to get it to you, and you can do your trip planning with it. And we hope you'll enjoy the 2021 Waggoner Cruising Guide. So Landons, do we have any other marina or any other announcements?
We do. We've got some updates here. I just want Peter, when you were talking about the one leaf on the bridge, were you talking about the Montlake or the U District?
The mountain, good question. Yes, the Mount Lake Bridge by Seattle Yacht Club, and that would affect Lake Washington boaters.
Got it. Okay, I just wanted to make sure, because the one that I had here is the U District, so the University Street Bridge. They're doing the same kind of thing with one leaf opening, and that's going to be coming up here on March 11th. March 22nd. So March 22nd through the 31st, they're going to be doing some maintenance on the University Street Bridge. The same kind of thing. They're going to have one leaf open, and there'll be a barge underneath. So the horizontal clearance on that bridge will be reduced during that time period. So again, that's March 22nd through the 31st on that one. And the other one wanted to, let's see. The other one I want to talk about was I was going to do a share screen on this one in a second here. So, about a year or so ago, we had the announcement that from NOAA, the sunsetting of raster charts. And at the time, everybody was, oh my gosh, but it was out a ways. The deadline or the deadline or the date when all of the charts, when they hope to have all of the raster charts out and are done is 2025. So at that time, everybody was kind of, well, yeah, but it's out there a ways. Well, reality is here. And the first chart that is discontinued, the raster chart on the West Coast at least, has been announced. And I was talking about NOAA, and their criteria was they wanted to start with charts that are the least used or the least impact for boaters. And so they chose that one. I'm going to share a screen on this one because this is kind of a noteworthy event, it seems like. Slideshow that. So that's what it's going to look like, by the way, when, sorry, wanted to get that. So that's what it's going to look like when we get back to that for a second. And
nice looking cottage, Leonard.
I gotta go back to that. Okay, so in the local notice to mariners, there's going to be an announcement 6 months prior to each chart going away. And the image that I had up there quickly was local notice to mariners for chart number 18665, which none of us are probably familiar with. It happens to be the chart for Lake Tahoe in California, and that is the first chart on the West Coast that is going to be discontinued. And so they just put the 6-month notice in there that in 6 months in August, that chart will be canceled. And that's the sequence they're going to use right now. Local notice mariner, 6 months in advance, you'll get some notice that a chart will be discontinued, and then of course when it's canceled, it'll be in the local notice to mariners as canceled. When they do that, the other interesting part of that, as these raster charts go away, the chart numbers go away too. So 186.65 is going to go away. We won't see that number anymore. And it has significance in Coast Guard references and other things in local notice to mariners and other publications, where right now they'll talk about chart number 186.65. And all of that's going to be replaced with geographic names. So a standardized set of geographic names that NOAA is right now coming up with, where they'll reference, I assume, something like Lake Tahoe, and then they'll introduce whether it's a light that's missing or whether there's a wreck or something like that. So changes are happening. They're underway. First chart is here on the West Coast that's going to be discontinued in August. And so those of us that are headed up to Lake Tahoe, none of us, but anybody that's up there navigating Lake Tahoe will have to go to ENC charts after the August date. Now, the other part of that one is, I presume, after they're canceled, the interesting question will be, is after the chart is canceled, they won't be updating it anymore, but the question is, can you still get an older copy of that? So for some of us that we still want to use the ENC charts, but I like some of the land reference pieces that you get off of raster charts, and it would be nice to be able to at least have some old raster charts for reference purposes, and we'll wait to see whether we can still get them after they're canceled. So that's my updates. Lorian?
Yeah, well, as Mark mentioned, the vaccinations are going a little slower in BC, and they made an interesting decision. They have decided to have a 4-month gap between COVID vaccinations. So that's due to their limited supply. They mainly have Zanaka, they have some Moderna and Pfizer, but again, their supplies are low. So they've made the decision to have a 4-month gap between vaccinations. They get their supplies from United Kingdom. Of course, United Kingdom is no longer part of Brexit, so, no longer part of the EU. So again, the supply is limited there for them in BC. And due to this vaccination schedule, it's likely that Canada will take a more conservative approach to opening the border. As Mark said, we're keeping an eye out on that.
It is still the question that we get the most. And I can say I get at least 2 or 3 questions or emails, phone calls or emails a day.
That's just from me, Mark.
Yeah, I know, wanting to know about the border. So I don't have any news that I haven't shared with you.
On the brighter side, with the orca, as we all know, orca calves were born last year, and they now know the sex of the calves. The 6-month-old rolled over on its back, and scientists were able to determine that it's a female, a girl. And of course, females are important for sustaining the population. I think males have something to do with it also, though, right, guys? And,
not according to NOAA. They haven't gotten that message yet.
Blushing.
The other calf that was born is a male, so we have a female and a male, so that's great. And they're doing well. The other news, the fish will be happy. Seattle, City of Seattle and King County, they are boring a 2.7-mile tunnel from Wallingford to Ballard, and that's to collect and hold stormwater and sewage so it doesn't flow out into the ship canal when we have those heavy Seattle rains. So that's good news. And the tunnel will hold 29 million gallons of untreated stormwater and sewage temporarily until the treatment plant can receive it. We don't know when that project will start. However, crews are assembling the boring machine right now. In fact, if you would like to name it, give your suggestion, you can go to Twitter using the hashtag #name that TBM. T for Tango, B for Bravo, M for Mike. So maybe a fish name, Salmon Sally or something, but you know.
We could always name it the Peter Schrappen boring machine.
Oh, well. Oh, wait, I get it. I know what you did there. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Thank you. I know where you live, Mark.
You do.
Well, thanks.
That's
Landon.
it.
Yeah, that's
Yep,
great, Landon.
that's it for us.
Well, what
That's
else
it
on
for
tap for
updates.
tonight, Mark? We're hearing from our viewers at home. They want to know what the heck is going on. When's
I
the real show
know.
start?
They're all writing in. We got a lot of activity on the chat line. Thank you. Keep it coming. We have one of our favorite guests. He's back again. I think this is the first guest we've had where we've actually invited the guest back.
That's right.
So he must be good. It's, Doug Miller. Doug, come on in. And from Milltech. And those of you who've watched Seattle Boat Show Live, Doug has been our expert on AIS through his company. And he talked to us about AIS the last time. And the subject came up, another subject that people ask us all the time: how can I have good communication on my boat when I'm going up and down the inside passage? And Doug has got some of the answer for that. I basically tell people, hey, we're out on the water to get away from it all, and you want to stay connected. So I will add one thing to this before we get to Doug, as a follow-up to our show from a couple of weeks ago. We had a show about satellite communication with Jeff Thomason from Oceans, and we had talked about the Starlink satellite system that Elon Musk and his SpaceX company is putting up. And at the time we said, well, it's not really going to affect boaters. And they still haven't developed the equipment to be able to receive those satellite signals. Well, Elon Musk heard us. He must watch the show. And he made an announcement this past week and said they are going to be launching the equipment so that you can have a satellite connection with the Starlink satellites, which is a nice bandwidth satellite system, good response rate, and they'll have it for boats and RVs very shortly. They will not have it for Tesla cars yet. So I'm not sure I'll be able to put it on my boat. See, my boat's the size of a Tesla car, but it's going to be interesting to see what they come out with to give high-speed communication. So with that, Doug has got answers of what we can get today for Wi-Fi and for LTE and existing systems that are out there. And Doug, why don't you tell us all about it? What are our options? What can we do?
Well, thanks, Mark, and hello, everyone. Good to be back. So I started looking at this literally 20 years ago. At the time, I was working for Microsoft, and I liked to go out on my boat, and I still wanted to stay connected. And I had a pocket PC, and I had a phone, and all sorts of things to try to stay connected so I could do email. And over the years, I've been following this space and become more and more interested in the solutions that are out there. And finally, for me, it was sort of a tipping point over the last year where there were some really, really good solutions that were appropriate for boaters that really kind of raised the bar and made it possible to have true high-speed internet connectivity when you're out in your boat. So I'll talk today about really coastal cruising and really focus on the capabilities with LTE, 5G, and Wi-Fi. Not talk about satellite because you had a talk on satellite a couple of weeks ago. And to be honest, as mentioned in that presentation, satellite still has a way to go to have enough bandwidth to be able to do Zoom calls and that sort of thing. But certainly we can do all of that today with LTE, Wi-Fi, and 5G. So I'll put my screen up here. And
so basically what you're going to be showing us, Doug, is some black boxes that are available today that we can actually start to spend oodles of money, preferably with your company, and install them on our boat to get good Wi-Fi or LTE.
yeah, Yeah, and what I'll talk about is really a broad spectrum of different solutions. I'm not trying to hype any one particular solution. I wanted to sort of review what people are using today and some of the pros and cons, and then what's coming. We get a lot of questions about 5G. When's that going to happen? So we can talk about that a bit. But sort of starting off right at the top, a lot of people, just simply connect to the Wi-Fi hotspot on their in the marina, and they use something like this. This is a RoadWave Wi-Fi bridge. And basically what it does is picks up a signal from your marina Wi-Fi, and you connect an Ethernet cable here, and that goes to a router. And as long as you're in a marina that has good Wi-Fi, you're connected. And so this has been kind of the gold standard for people who want to do it from a Wi-Fi enabled marina. The problem though is, of course, a lot of marinas don't have very good Wi-Fi, and so you don't get a great signal. And if you get lots and lots of people all trying to connect, it just goes from bad to worse. So from there, people then started using their phones and iPads and that sort of thing, and doing a personal hotspot. And that's certainly a viable way to go. Leonard and I were trading war stories yesterday about how the things we would try to do to make our phone connect to a cellular network. One time I was up in Desolation Sound, and I put my phone in a waterproof bag and hoisted it up on a halyard to the top of the mast to try to get a better cell signal so I could connect my PC to the phone. And it sort of worked, but not a great solution while you're underway. Next thing that's been sort of popular, a lot of iPads you can get now with, or have been able to for quite some time, with a SIM card slot. So you can put a SIM card in there and be connected. One of my favorite devices is this one here. This is a Windows device, and you think, okay, well, what's the big deal? This is an ARM-based Windows laptop. And when Microsoft released these, the spec including a slot for an LTE chip, SIM card, and you can pop an LTE card in there, and it becomes what they call always on, always connected. And being ARM-based, it had great battery life. So these are really nice as a boat solution, especially for single people, because you get battery life sort of up in the 20-hour range, super fast speeds. I mean, I get well over 100 megabit connection speeds with this using a Sprint chip SIM card, and it works really well. So these got really panned by the press for a while, but it's one of my favorite devices for just having basic connectivity, doing email, doing browsing, and that sort of thing.
And Doug, is that the Microsoft Surface?
So Microsoft have the Surface Pro X, which is an ARM-based, and that's one of the best machines out there with the ARM architecture that runs Windows. So definitely check those out. It's a really nice solution, especially, as I say, if you're just a single person trying to keep connected on the internet. The next device, a lot of people went with a hotspot. This is one of the ones made by Netgear. It's the Verizon Jetpack. Those work really well. I used one of these for several years and had reasonably good connectivity, as long as there was a reasonably good cell signal inside my cabin. Some of these you can get these little antennas. They attach to the back of the hotspot, and you can hang this in your window and get a little more coverage than you normally would with it just running inside the cabin. So still a very viable solution, especially if you're cruising, in the South Sound area or the main part of Puget Sound. The next thing that's become really popular are cellular boosters. This is a cellular booster here. And what these do, this is the amplifier here. This is an antenna that's designed to be used inside the cabin. And then there's an antenna cable port here, and you lead that back to an antenna that's mounted outside. And so typically you'll have a fairly large antenna mounted outside, maybe on your stern rail or on the davits or up in a radar arch. And basically what it does is it brings the cell signal down, travels through the cable to the amplifier, and the amplifier essentially almost becomes like a little cell tower inside your own cabin. And these work pretty well, especially in fringe areas. You wouldn't use it in Seattle, for example, but up in the San Juan Islands or some of the remote areas in South Sound works really well. To give you an example, I used this one up in, we were in Gerald Cove, and my phone had no cell signal. I turned on my cell phone booster and boom, I had 3 bars and was able to get back to using it for doing basic communication. The other nice thing is if you have one of these little jet packs, if you put it near this device, it'll amplify the data side of the jet pack as well as your cell phone communications. So definitely a good thing to do. The one sort of caveat with these is it's got one antenna and it's basically amplifying one part of the cell signal. But our phones today typically have at least 4 antennas in them, 4x4 MIMO it's called. That's how they get the high speeds on the new modern phones. And so if you use a booster, you may not get super fast speeds, but at least you'll get connected. And it's a good way to accommodate connections in a remote area that normally doesn't get cell coverage. You do have to have some initial coverage, as you know, a hint of a cell phone bar somewhere on your phone to be able to have this thing work. So often if you go out on deck and see if you get a signal, turn this on and you should get a fairly decent signal. And these have been super popular. People like WeBoost, SureCall, Shakespeare have boosters that work really well on boats. So that then brings us into the realm of an area that we've been really focusing on, which is LTE routers that also provide Wi-Fi connectivity. So an example of this, this is a product made by PetWave, and you see all these antennas on here. As I mentioned, LTE connections typically are using 4x4 MIMO. So this particular router here has 4 LTE antennas on it, but it also does Wi-Fi. So I've got a couple of Wi-Fi antennas that I can use. And I'll show you some diagrams of how this all works out, but these are incredibly useful devices because not only do they bring in a signal from the internet, but they also can be connected to a local marina Wi-Fi. So, and I'll talk about a couple of different ways that can go. Maybe I'll stop for a sec and see if anybody has any questions there.
I just wanted to make the comment that you talk about marina Wi-Fi, which I agree is marginal at best, but we've seen more and more companies like Shaw in Canada that will have a Wi-Fi signal in a community. And if you're able to get credentials to get on that network, they work pretty well because they saturate that community with coverage.
Yep. Yeah, and that's definitely a reason to consider one of these devices, because if there is a Wi-Fi signal, you can connect to that. For instance, I have one of these on my boat. And when I'm in the yacht club, I connect to the yacht club public Wi-Fi. And so I'm getting basically a free connection. But it has the possibility to do a failover to LTE. So as I cruise away, it automatically switches to an LTE connection. And so I have full-time coverage, both on the dock and as I'm cruising. And as I roam, it can even roam to different cell systems. If you have multiple cell plans, it'll take up to 2 SIM cards. So a nice solution for being connected regardless of whether it's Wi-Fi or LTE.
And Doug, the cost of some of these that you've shown, just roughly, I know your website has cost.
Yeah, I'm going to walk through sort of 3 examples, and I've got some ballpark pricing on basically, so you can set your budget expectations accordingly.
Doug, can you show, Sue Peterson's asking for the LTE booster that you just showed. Can you show that again? Which model was that? Which model?
So this is made by Peplink. It's a Max Transit, and it's a category 18 radio inside, which is theoretically up to a gigabit transfer speeds for downloads. In reality, and we'll talk about this a bit, in reality, you're not going to see that just because of saturation and cell towers and that sort of thing. But you can get some very nice speeds, certainly fast enough to be able to do video streaming, do Zoom calls. The thing that really starts being a concern at that point, though, is your cell plan. Do you have enough data on the cell plan? So we'll talk about that for a sec as well.
Thanks, Doug. And Lois has a good point. You have in order of effectiveness. Is that at the top? Is that the highest order, highest effective, most effective?
Well, so you can basically use this device with these antennas and inside your cabin, and it works pretty well.
Oh, I meant for your slide. For your slide, you've got an order of effectiveness.
Yes, that's
top
right.
One. Okay, great. Top
Yeah.
one is most effective.
And there's nothing against, doing Wi-Fi to your marina. It's more of a factor of the marina itself may not have great Wi-Fi, so don't rely on that. So as we go down the list here, these are becoming faster and faster and more reliable. Some people use these with external antennas. So you basically couple these with an antenna outside the cabin, and I'll walk you through that a bit. There are some devices that basically have the router inside a dome. You can mount that at the very top of your highest point on the boat, if it's a sailboat, even on the top of the mast. And that gets really great coverage because of height and the fact that the router is actually built into the dome. And then finally, I'll quickly mention 5G because everybody's asking, when's 5G happening? When's it coming? Well, I actually got my first 5G router yesterday, and it looks just like the 4G router. It's exactly the same case, but it's got a 5G modem in it. And so we're going to be out on the boat this weekend, and we'll be testing that over at Blake Island and a few other places to see how it works.
Doug, Dave Ryan from the Bay Area just chimed in on the chat line that he just read about the T-Mobile 5G hotspot, and he's using it in his marina, is getting really good results. He obviously has good 5G coverage in the San Francisco area, but and he's got a large data plan and very happy.
Right. Yeah, no, the probably the carrier that's going to give you the best results right at the moment will be T-Mobile, and you can couple one of their SIM cards with one of the 4G modems or one of the 5G modems. And I was talking to the manufacturer today about it, and they were talking about somebody in Kentucky who's been getting absolutely fabulous bandwidth with 5G. So it all depends on where you live. And of course, 5G isn't just 5G. You've got at least 3 different variants of 5G. You've got low band, mid band, ultra wide band. And the reality is most of the coverage that will be relevant for us as boaters will be mid band. And that's where people are seeing quite good speeds beyond 4G. Low band is roughly equivalent to 3G today or 4G today. And then the ultra is really what they're doing in stadiums and that sort of thing. So here's just a snapshot of some of the things that I was just talking about. We got the Max Transit on the top left there. And that's a category 18 modem built into that one. It's built for industrial use, so it works really well on boats. It's built for vibration. It runs on 12 volts. So lots of good capabilities. The jetpack on the lower left. We have a cell phone booster in the middle there. And then we have the dome solution that I was telling you about towards the bottom. And then one of the Rogue Wave Wi-Fi bridges over on the far right. So wanted to go through some samples of how you could get going on your boat. This is where I started. I started with just one of these sort of devices powered by 12 volts, and I just had it down below in the cabin. I used the bundled antennas that come with it, these little paddles, and got really good coverage. Worked better than my jetpack that I've been using for years. And what I found is if I moved this device on deck, I doubled my speed. So I started thinking about, well, maybe I need an external antenna. But basically, I had more than enough speed to be able to stream movies and that sort of thing. And so we're talking about a device that's sort of in the $400 to $600 range, all in one. Everything's in here. And not only does this connect to the internet, but it also provides a Wi-Fi hotspot for your boat. So you basically have a boat network that you connect to with all of your devices on the boat. And then these things route the traffic to either LTE or to Wi-Fi if you happen to have Wi-Fi in the marina. And so to get kind of a better look at that, this is a slightly more souped up version of the first one, where we started thinking about some external antennas. And why do you want external antennas? They really just extend range, especially if you're up in the San Juans or up in the Gulf Islands or Desolation Sound when we eventually get back there. These antennas will really help bring in the weak signals and increase your data bandwidth so that you'll get a faster connection. So here we have a couple.
Just for clarification, when I'm using the LTE, I'm buying a separate SIM card from the carrier of my choice. Is that correct?
That's right. So you would, for instance, I just got a new SIM card from T-Mobile yesterday, and you punch out that SIM card, and your device has a SIM slot typically, and you just pop in your SIM card and try not to drop it on the floor or overboard. Once that's inserted and it's powered up and your antennas are connected, it'll immediately try to connect to the network. So we'll talk a bit about plans, but the real hot one that people are jumping on right now is a T-Mobile plan that's for $50, you get 100 gigabytes of download a month. And so $50 a month. So that's more than most people will need. And that's not throttled. You basically get a true 100 gigabytes of data. So that'll get you lots and lots of movies, lots of zooming, lots of other things like that. So, and I'll talk a bit about some of the plans and some of the gotchas as well, things like roaming, especially if you're going to Canada. So this little map that I have up on the screen is kind of a souped up version of taking this device, taking off these antennas, basically just disconnecting them. And then we have cable that runs, connects to external antennas. And there's a variety of antennas, as I mentioned. We have these big ones that to be honest, might be a little overbearing on your boat. Maybe you don't want to do that. There's also smaller ones like this one here, a little dome antenna that can be mounted on a pole or on your deck. And these are multi-purpose antennas. They do LTE and Wi-Fi. And even GPS. So lots of ways to sort of enhance your signal with external antennas. So in this picture here, we're using our Wi-Fi antenna to both connect to the marina Wi-Fi if it's available, but it's also acting as the antenna for our boat itself to serve up Wi-Fi on the boat. So basically acts as a gateway between the outside world and your inside world in the boat. And so there's lots and lots of different ways to configure this. For instance, a friend of mine just bought one of these, and he's going to use his Wi-Fi extender, his Rogue Wave, connected to the WAN port on the Max Transit. So use the LTE side, use his existing Wi-Fi bridge to bring in a good signal into the router, and then he'll be using the router Wi-Fi for just the SSID to host Wi-Fi inside the boat. And so there's lots of ways you can use these. One thing I should mention is a lot of these have 2 SIM cards slots. And so what that means is, especially if you're going, say, to Canada, you might want to have a Canadian SIM card in one slot and a US one in the other, and you can auto switch between one and the other depending on whether you're roaming or not.
And Doug, I noticed on your website, you're using Google Fi as typically your alternate system.
Yeah, that was up until yesterday when I got my new T-Mobile one, but I've been using Verizon, which works really well. I've been using Google Fi, which I actually kind of like. When you put it in one of these router devices, it works off of T-Mobile's network. And one of the nice things is they allow you to roam up in Canada on the same plan without any surcharge. So you basically don't have to do anything. If you're up in the Boundary Waters area, you can go up and down, and it can auto grab either a cell tower up in Canada or one in the San Juans and be able to use the same cell plan on both. So
a question came in on the chat line that how does T-Mobile work in the San Juans? And it's my understanding it's one of the best coverage in the San Juans. And I've been told that's because a number of T-Mobile executives have a home in the San Juans. So they've made sure there's a good antenna there so that they can get their work done when they're at home on the weekends.
Yeah, I've been hearing good things about that. One of the references I'll put at the end of the deck here is a blog by a guy named Steve Mitchell. cbits.com is his blog site, and he's reviewed all the various cell plans, and he reviews lots of equipment and that sort of thing, but has lots of tips and tricks. But I know he's been using T-Mobile, been happy with that. To be honest, any of the big carriers up there work okay. And again, it's nice to have two carriers because you can actually find, okay, I'm in one bay, Verizon isn't so good there, but T-Mobile's good. And I go up to Echo Bay and maybe, one of the other guys is better. So it's always nice to have a couple of options if it's life and death that you've got to be connected. If you're trying to get away from the internet, then maybe don't be so worried about it. But, this next setup is really kind of the souped up high end. And this is putting one of these dome routers at the top of your mast and then running Ethernet down the mast to what's called a SIM injector at the base in your cabin somewhere. And this is providing power, but also the ability to add additional SIM cards to your router so that you can have multiple connections available to you if you happen to care about that. And then you would connect that to a router inside your boat, typical access point, and be able to get your devices in the boat connecting over Wi-Fi, and then the signal going through the dome up on the top of the mast. The big benefit to this approach is that cable that's going up the mast is an Ethernet cable. And there's no loss with Ethernet. You're not going to get a signal loss going from the dome down to the rudder in the boat. And one of the biggest challenges with doing all of this, if you use an external antenna, is cabling. Because as your cables get longer, you get more and more loss. And so what you don't want to do is spend a whole lot of money on some fancy antennas, but not spend enough money on cabling. And just to give you an example, obviously we do a lot of AIS and VHF stuff. We recommend, for instance, LMR 400 cabling for long runs up a mast, for example. But even still, you'll have some loss between the antenna and the radio device. With the frequencies we're talking about with LTE, the loss can be up to 2 or 3 times as much. So you end up with like 6 decibel loss on the cable on a 100-foot run. That's going to do a lot to sort of nullify the effect of having a remote antenna. So something to keep in mind as you install these systems. And I tell people, when you buy one of these, start with the little paddle antennas that come with it. Give it a try, give it a month, see how you like it. And then see whether you need an external antenna or not.
Doug, there's mention on your slide with speed fusion connections. Does this actually combine two signals and give you more bandwidth, more throughput?
So great question. The Peplink folks have a kind of a unique capability called speed fusion, which does in fact allow you to combine multiple connections into a single virtual connection and increase your bandwidth. So it's if you had some of these devices have two modems built in, assuming you have them both turned on and you've enabled the speed fusion. You don't quite get double the bandwidth, but close. It's about a 19% cost for the doubling. But it works really well. And the other thing it does is they do smoothing and hot failover. So smoothing meaning you won't get jitter with your Zoom calls or video streaming. And then also for failover, if one signal goes down, the other one will take over and it'll be totally seamless. So if you happen to be watching a movie and one cell tower drops off, it'll just keep going. So some very cool features, mainly designed for the enterprise, but boy, it's really handy as a voter as well to be able to have that super reliable internet connection.
Should we take a little time out here, Mark, and look at some of these questions?
Yeah, let's go for it, Peter.
Okay.
Why don't you read them off?
Sure, that would imply that I know how to read, but I will do my best here. I don't want to stream videos. I just want to obtain Environment Canada and US Marine weather reports when I'm in remote anchorages located in the Inside Passage. What technology do I need?
So if you're getting up into the Inside Passage, chances are you're not going to necessarily have an LTE signal. And so everything that I've been talking about here won't apply. This is really for coastal cruising in areas where you're likely to have an LTE connection, a cellular connection. The talk that happened a couple of weeks ago, I'd highly recommend go listen to that talk because they definitely talked about the idea of using satellite communications to download weather and stay connected that way. The problem, of course, with satellite is it's not quite fast enough to do, and certainly not fast enough to do video, and even email is challenging. So you have to do compression technology there. But I'm less of the guy to talk to on satellite. They're experts in that area. And so I'd point you in that direction.
Mark, while I track down that recording, why don't you read the next question?
I don't have it in front of me, Peter.
There you
That's
go.
why
I like it. Smooth. All right. Well, here we go. Sue Peterson. I have an existing dome for a defunct KVH satellite phone system. That means that all Ethernet cabling is in place. Would that simplify install of the dome system? Keep it up, Peter. You're doing an awesome job with Mark. Oh, wait, I added that last part, but thanks.
That could have been Sue.
Yeah. So one really fun thing you can do with a dome that you're not using anymore, and I've been talking to some customers about this, is placing one of these up in the dome and then connecting your Ethernet to the LAN port here and leading that back down below, and maybe have a router down below just for Wi-Fi. The benefit is the placement. Even if you just use these little antennas up in the dome, you're going to get really, really good coverage. If you want to get even better coverage, you could stick one of these connected to this up in the dome and get fabulous reception. So don't throw out those domes. They could be used for this sort of application.
Excellent. So the next question from Ronnie. So if you have a T-Mobile SIM card in the router, can you use your Verizon phone, or is the router just for the computer?
So the router that we're talking about here is just for data communications, nothing to do with phone calls, except you can do voice over IP, or you can do Wi-Fi calling. And so I have found in some places I didn't have Verizon, I had T-Mobile, but I was able to make Verizon calls by doing Wi-Fi calling through the router.
Okay.
That's another way to sort of address that.
Thank you, sir. And what about, Bob's asking, what about Verizon in the San Juans?
I've had pretty good luck with Verizon in the San Juans myself. They seem to work pretty well. If you're going to spend a lot of time up there, you might want to think about an external antenna because it'll pull in the signal a little bit better. But Verizon had been my sort of primary for a couple of years now, and I've been fine with their coverage up in the San Juans. The big thing I didn't typically like about Verizon is when I went up to Canada, they only gave you a half a gig of data before they throttled, and then it basically became useless. So.
Okay. Next question, Dean Coronado. I've been using a dual SIM phone for 4 years now. There must be a router equivalent.
Yes, exactly. This device here, there's a version of this called a Duo, and it's got actually 4 SIM slots, 2 active at any time. And so basically with that, you have 2 modems that can either be used independently, one as a failover to the other, or they can be bound together to give you a fast dual modem speed. And there's several devices out there that have dual modems that work really well. And in fact, this Dome solution, there's a 2 modem version of the Dome. I sold one of those yesterday to a guy who was ready to take off to the Caribbean. And again, you get the benefits of 2 different modems getting a signal for you and being able to combine that.
Thanks, Doug. What plans are native to Canada? Would you know that answer?
Which plans are?
Which plans are native to Canada?
So if you're going to Canada and going to spend a lot of time in Canada, you might want to get a SIM card up in Canada. According to the new T-Mobile plan, they give you 5 gig of roaming data up in Canada, which may be enough for just doing email and basic stuff. I'm not going to do videos probably with that. As I mentioned with Google Fi, they treat the world as one single data plan. So you can use the same card, the same data plan, no matter where you are. I was in Indonesia a couple of years ago, used it there and had great coverage, and didn't cost me any more than what it cost when I was using it here in the US.
Thanks. Gregory's wondering, what is your coverage throughout the boat for the Peplink transit? Do you need to stay close to the transmitter with your devices?
So this is broadcasting a Wi-Fi signal for the boat. So on my boat, it's Naiad is the name of my boat. And so I have Naiad P for Peplink. And so my devices connect to the Wi-Fi hotspot that's being broadcast by this device. And that easily covers the entire boat. I don't have any issue getting that signal anywhere. So that maybe what he might have been thinking about is the cell phone amplifier. And this is the device that allows you to amplify both your phone and your data device inside the cabin. And this is the key antenna inside the cabin that you do have to be fairly close to. I find I typically have to be within about 5 feet if I really want amplification with the cell phone booster.
You want to keep on going there, Doug? We'll
Sure.
stop there with the questions. Yep.
So I'll just go one more slide here just to sort of talk about some of the other considerations before we quit. I think we're pretty close to the end. Big question is, what sort of speeds can I expect? There's different categories of LTE. And so that's important to understand what those mean. You can do a search on the internet, sort of get better educated on that. But, we're talking anywhere from 30 to 150 megabit per second. So very decent speeds for doing just about anything that typically people want to do. On the top right there, I was using a category 6 modem, little device, and I was getting 78 megabit download, very, very decent for a fairly inexpensive device. 5G, I should have more information this weekend when I get to try it out this weekend and be sort of out in front of Seattle and see what it looks like. But a lot of it depends on the cell tower, the congestion on the cell tower, and the carrier. They may throttle some types of traffic if you're too annoying. Antennas and cabling, as I mentioned, are a really big deal. So before you start investing in antennas, really think about the cabling, because it's almost more important. How are you going to get as short as possible a cable run between your router and the external antenna? And this applies to all the devices I've discussed, the routers, cell boosters, and Wi-Fi bridges. And then finally, yeah. Go ahead.
But one remedy for that is if it is an Ethernet cable as opposed to a antenna cable.
Right. That was one of the nice benefits of these Wi-Fi bridges, because on the inside of these, what you're connected to is Ethernet. And so you don't have any loss going from this, which could be mounted, reasonably high in your boat, down to, the router inside your boat. So that definitely helps with the signal if you don't have to use antenna cable the whole length, if you can do Ethernet partway.
Well, Doug, we're just about at the top of the hour there. This has been fantastic. One of the clearest explanations I've heard of some of the different options that are available. And I'll put in a plug. I said it earlier, but go to Doug's website. Lots of great information there. And Doug has got some articles. He's even got a complete explanation of how to do an installation for a typical boat. And I can also say that Doug's always available by phone. Tremendous customer support, and I'm glad to be a customer of Doug's. So thank you for that, and the boating world thanks you that you're able to help so many people do that. So there's Doug's website, milltechmarine.com, and you can see a lot of information. And otherwise, give Doug a call.
Thanks,
Good
Mark.
stuff. Thank you, Doug. Yeah, that's excellent.
Wonderful.
Yeah, a lot of information.
So, Mark, have you been tracking America's Cup? I've got to ask.
I watched up until the finals, and I haven't seen the first round of the finals. Do you know what the score is?
I hate to tell people at home if they're taping it, but I'll just tell you, Mark, it's 1-1 right now.
Perfect.
Yeah, exactly.
Perfect.
I've been meaning to show this commercial for the last several weeks. I've been teasing it with our pre-show call, and I'd love to show it now. We can come back on the other side as people stretch their legs. Okay, 1 second. Let's see if we can figure this out.
While Peter's doing that, I do recommend taking a look at the America's Cup if you get a chance. These boats are incredible. The crews are incredible. They are literally flying along. And so if you get a chance, and Peter's going to take us out with this.
Yeah, well, thanks to everyone at home. This was episode 38 with Steve Martin. Tomorrow is Baked Scallops Day, so go ahead and break the bank on some scallops, and we'll go out with this commercial, which I found is to be the funniest thing I've ever seen. So hopefully I'm not overselling this, as I probably am. Here we go.
The British are coming! The British are coming! Wait, it's the Italians. The Italians are coming!
This is going to be so much better than the tea party.
Great commercial, Peter. Thank you for that.
You bet. Yeah, no,
All right, next week, we're going to have Larry Graff from Aspen Power Yachts. He's going to be talking to us about an adventure sail that he did way up on the Arctic Circle, down the Mackenzie River with one of his power cats. And very interesting. Up in that area, Peter, there's more bears than people. And I think Larry met them all when he was up there with his boat. So
I could see
Larry's a lot of fun.
I could see Larry getting along just fine with some bears.
Yeah, he would.
There's probably some long conversations with some bears. I know.
He and Peter Robson from Pacific Yachting Magazine, one of my favorite writers that I've had a chance to work with over the years. So that'll be next week's show.
I'll be here. Thanks, everyone at home. See y'all. Have a great week. Thanks, Doug. Good night, Landon.
Good night, everybody. Thanks, Doug.
Thanks.